Greetings, YouTube. Pray all is well with everybody. Pray everybody's having a blessed and wonderful day. I know it's been a while since I've been on here. I've had their intentions. I've had. There are things, though, that have taken place in my life that have kind of, it didn't stop things, but it put things on hold. My biological mother, I lost her. Me and my siblings, we lost our mother. There are some other personal things that have happened with me. I don't broadcast everything over social media. There are a lot of things I know about, and that many people know about the reality of this world we live in. Sometimes it's not safe for you to put certain things out there. I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying this for any kudos or anything. I'm a loved man, but I'm also a hated man. So some you just don't put everything on social media. But and as I'm kind of, it's been so long. I'm kind of feeling just sharing my heart with you all today. So I might make two videos today because I feel like some of what I'm going to say will definitely be a help by the grace of Almighty God to people. But in any event, um, I just wanted to talk about a subject matter. People that come on this platform and on my channel specifically know that this is something that's talked about on this channel. Now, at this point, I have to admit I have more of this on my channel because there's just been so much going on that I really need to catch up and have the other things on my channel that I want to have too. But you do see apologetic type stuff on here. You do see some things where you know that I put up to hopefully help people engage in being prepared to present their faith and also having some intellectual self defense when dealing with people. That's why there's things up about logic and stuff like that. Um, so um, you know. Um, what I wanted to talk about was, I did two videos like, where are you getting your information from? I would want to call this one, bro, where are you getting all this from? And you say, well, you know, Brother Julius, why would you call it that? Well, I have times when I went kind of on deep dives with people, or what they may perceive to even be a deep dive. Sometimes it wasn't that deep. It's just that I maybe brought some stuff together that they had never thought about, or I had said some things that they probably didn't know was going on, and things like that. And at the end of it, some of the people that were just maybe hearing certain things and they weren't all the way persuaded, but I had shook them enough to where they're like, I'm here. I don't know whether to believe you or not, but you kind of have my attention. So, bro, where are you getting all this from? And in other words, I, I, I think I'm informed. I watch the news. I do these things, but you're saying things I've never heard. Like, where are you getting this information? Um, one of my favorite researchers is Richard Grove. Now, if we get to our overall philosophical outlook and even theological above that theological outlook and our worldview, it probably may not be the same. I think last time I really heard Richard Grove go there, I think he may say that he adheres to a Christian worldview in some respects. I don't know. I don't know that for sure. But a good historian is a good historian, and I think Richard Grove, when it comes to his methodology, is just a good, in my humble opinion, historian, or as he calls it, a forensic historian. And I'm not, when I say that, I just like the term he uses, forensic historian. So that's why you saw that response or that reaction. But um, you know, he's one of my favorites, and I've heard him talk about how a lot of information being is out there, but there's lots of information that has been occulted. That has been occulted. Now people say, "Oh Lord, what are you talking about?" Well, well, we have to understand, what does the word occult mean? Occult means hidden. That's what it means. Now, some people have went into. I saw Bill Cooper talking about it, and I believe he meant well, but he said occult does not mean the devil. Occult means hidden. And while that's true, when you look up occult, it doesn't mean the devil. But the reason why people associate occult with the devil is because of the nature of the devil. Okay, the nature of the devil is to operate in a covert fashion. Uh, that's the nature of the enemy. Even when you look at how he's setting up this world system, Paul called what he was doing. If you look in the King James version, it says the mystery of iniquity. Some other translations call it the secret power of lawlessness. I think the NIV says that. Um, One translation, the Knox translation, also actually calls it the conspiracy of revolt. But this seems to be one of the enemy's tactics, to operate in a hidden fashion. To operate in a hidden fashion. So that's one reason why people associate the occult with the devil. And then when you start getting into occult teachings, they're demonic. This is at the end of the day, we ain't got to go through no big thing where we go throughout all of the teachings to prove it. I mean, I could, at a certain point. I'm not saying I could, like I've studied all the. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that let me rephrase that. It could be done. It could be done. Now, listening to me, there's some things I can tell you, but there's a lot of occult stuff out there, and I ain't gonna even act like I went through all of it, you know. Um, but the occult is demonic. But what he meant, I believe, when he was talking about occulted information, he was literally talking about this information's been hidden. And when you look into the details of who ultimately is behind it being hidden, then the best way I would say it, not to take away from him, the best way I would say it is to say occult groups occulted information. And so there are certain things as far as people's outlook and their understanding of the world that people are not aware of. For instance, I've been in conversations with people, and I have hammered down against the mainstream media. And some people, it's really interesting. It's fascinating to me. It is, and it kind of frustrates me when it comes from people that have been listening to me for a long time, because I'm like, you've been hearing me, but I guess you haven't been listening. But anyway, when these people will say things like, okay, if you don't get your information from the mainstream media, then where are you getting your information from? Like, and they'll say it like they'll say it. You can just feel their chest swelling. Like, I got him here, and it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Those are not the only vehicles of information. Does that shock you? Does that shock? It shouldn't, but it shocks many people, because the only channels of information they believe are out there. Because these other channels of information, because they're locked into, there's no other way I can say it, you're locked into a system because of how you've been conditioned. And you think the only thing that's out there is MSNBC, CNN, CNBC, and Fox, I get Fox 2, and all these other ones. But There's more channels of information out there. Why? Well, there's a couple reasons we can go into, but people, educated people, and I'm not saying that people that don't know this are stupid. That's not what I'm saying. But people that have educated themselves on this subject know, even if they're not conspiracy minded or driven, there are some that know that you're not getting all the information you need from a corporately consolidated media. You're not going to get it all from big media. You're just not going to get it all from big media because you could get into the ultra deep stuff, but one of the things that happens in mainstream media is you have a conflict of interest sometimes. Sometimes what will happen is, for instance, you'll have a show where they're going to report on the healthcare industry, but they're one of their main providers that's contributing to their program is Pfizer. So how you gonna get something unbiased if Pfizer is your sponsor, or if they're reporting on a possible war, and one of your main contributors is a military, it's a defense contracting company. If they want war, because if you're a defense contractor, that you're gonna make some money. You know what I'm saying? How can you be sure that you're going to get unbiased information? And this is a real issue people are concerned about. So people that know that there is conflicts of interest when it comes to mainstream media have went out and started their own. And you know why they've done it? Because on platforms like YouTube, YouTube is kind of YouTube is not what it used to be. People are going to Rumble and BitChute and there's another one that people are really interested in now. I forgot the name of it. Well, it'll come to me probably later if I think about it. But there's a lot of just other platforms people are going to because YouTube is in bed with mainstream media. Some of y'all, some of you know that, but some of you don't. Some of you don't realize that. It used to be. Let me give it to you like this. It used to be when you typed in something at YouTube, it would just take you to wherever. Do you know that they've stopped that? Do you know that they rearranged the algorithms, for lack of a better way of saying it, to where, or they've controlled the algorithms to where the first thing you're going to get when you type in certain things, you're going to get CNN, you're going to get mainstream outlets before they allow you to get the fringe outlets. And I need some of you to examine why certain things are fringe. Some of you think that they're fringe because they really are fringe. Some of the things might be fringe, but some of them aren't fringe. They're just not mainstream. And we live in a society that is dominated by, we live in a society ran essentially by monopoly capitalists. And the name of the game in monopoly capitalism is to destroy competition. To eliminate it. Now, I need to say that right. To eliminate competition. So, what better way to eliminate competition than to use the channels of information that you have at your disposal to poison people's minds against other possible views? Ever thought about that? And I'm having a little fun, y'all. So don't take my the way I'm talking personal. But these are things people need to think about. So people ask me, where do I get my information? And, where you get this information, bro? It's really simple. The information that people like me bring is what you would call occulted information. It's information, not occult information, but hidden information. Now, remember when you used to play hide and seek? And you would have to go find somebody that hid. You'd count to 10, and you had to go find somebody that hid. And if you were good, you had your instinct was where it needed to be, and all these things, you would find somebody. You would find them. Now, when we're talking about the information that I'm talking about, again, we're talking about hidden information. We're not talking about information that's been disposed of. We're not talking about information you can't find. We're talking about information that's just hidden. It's hidden. It's hidden. You know, and it's important that I make this distinction because we're not talking about. You don't want to fall into this trap of saying that, you know, where you end up starting making arguments where you start arguing from silence, and you make ridiculous arguments like, this and this and this and this is going on with the world. If you really want to know the truth, it's in the Vatican Library, but no one can get in it. If no one can get in it, then how do you know? How do you know? So I'm not talking about information that's impossible to get. I'm talking about information that's out there. It is out there. Carol Quigley's Anglo-American Establishment book, it's out there. You can literally order it, buy it, and read it. You can go online, actually, and read it for free. You can read Tragedy and Hope for free. There's a lot of information out there that you can just look up and read. He's a controversial figure, but, at the end of the day, the bottom line, this book is the book he's known for, and this book is, I would say, 95 to 98% solid, and that is, in my view, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. You can look that up. That can be read for free, and it's well documented, and you know what I'm saying. There are congressional records type stuff you can read for free, but it's been hidden, and it's been hidden in this sense. It's been hidden because when you look into who controls the education system, if I go down rabbit trails on everything, you're not going to get the gist of what I'm trying to give you in this video. So I'm sorry if you're wanting me to go into the history of everything I'm saying. Maybe if you stay here, and if you just want to, if you stay here, at some point I'll do a video and maybe we'll go down that rabbit trail. But my point is, when you look at who controls the education system, and it can be documented, it can be shown, there are books. That's what I'll do. I'll just recommend some books for you to read. Read The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America by Charlotte Thompson Iserbyt, The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. Read NEA, Trojan Horse in American Education by Samuel Blumenfield. Read School World Order. I forgot by the guy's name, but he worked with Charlotte Thompson Iserbyt. I'm trying to think if there are any other ones I can point. But those, if you can get anything by Samuel Blumenfield, and a lot of his stuff is online free, and it's literally, and it's on, I think Camp Constitution. You can go on their website and get a lot of, and Camp Constitution is a group that he likely, I think, it worked with at one point. Just partnered with. I'm not saying he worked with them like that, but likely partnered with. So you can get a lot of his stuff online for free and just read it. You know what I'm saying? But my point is, when you look at who's controlling the education system, look who's controlling the big media and everything like that. Okay, there is a ceiling on the information you're getting. When I say there's a ceiling, I mean like a ceiling above you. Like let's say you had the ability, even if you had the ability to go higher, there's a ceiling, and the truth is you do. You just have to recognize that the house that they provided for you, for lack of a better terms, is limiting. And you have to begin to learn to think for yourself. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But within this little house that they've constructed, and I'm being illustrative here. Hopefully, you're getting what I'm saying. There's a ceiling, and as long as you believe this construct that they have placed you around, you're going to believe that this is all the information, all the historical knowledge I can get. And I know I have to be careful talking like this because I'm not saying, because the Gnostics, modern Gnostics, have made use of a lot of what I'm saying, and they've twisted it. But see, they'll come with illogical arguments like all of history is a lie, nothing you've been told is true, and all that. That's not what Elder Reinhardt is saying. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I believe as the enemy has had a presence in history, guess who's sovereign over history? God. So I believe that in a world, in a reality rather, where God is sovereign, but He's given man choice, and within this choice there was the fall, and within this fall, this present age, this present aeon we're in, the person who's become the ruler of this present age, Jesus said it, Paul said it, Satan. But Satan can only do so much. Are you hearing me? But because he's a deceiver, his deception. See, a lot of times when you're dealing with your personal attacks and everything like that, a lot of times the person who's attacking you in the immediate sense is not the devil himself. It's one of his demons or something like that. Devil is not omnipresent. Okay? When we're really dealing with the actual devil, we're dealing with Satan himself, okay? We're dealing with someone who's dealing with world system type things. And I ain't gonna say that the devil don't ever come to you. I'm saying most of the time, majority of the time, that's not the devil himself. It's the devil in the fact that it's the devil's representatives, but it's not the devil. You know what I'm saying? And so when you start dealing with, this gets into so much other stuff, but when you start dealing with the kingdom of darkness, you have the devil, you have his fallen angels, and a lot of times it may not even be his fallen angels coming to you. It may just be demons. And see, fallen angels and demons are not the same thing. That's another video, but they're not the same thing. But the devil likes to hide things, likes to operate. Deception is his main tool. And so there's a lot of information that's been hidden, but it's not secret. For instance, if you go into a search engine, and I'm not just talking about just going in a search engine and just typing something and the first thing that comes. How do you know that's a good source? Everybody knows that I believe in good and solid sources, okay? So I'm not talking about that. I'm saying you can go in a search engine and there's something you may not know about, right? And then maybe, let's say you're taking the time to read a book and then you come across something and they mention a document that you don't even know existed. And you type it in, the search engine will bring it up. The document existed. It exists, and it existed. But you didn't know it existed because when you came up through the main stream school system, like the educational system, like a public school system or whatever, there wasn't nothing you was taught about. When you would listen to the nightly news, there was nothing that you was taught about. Or that you was heard, rather, on the nightly news. And I have a story to tell, just to give you an example. But it was hidden. It was covered up. It wasn't made assess. It was accessible, but it wasn't. You weren't made to know that it was accessible. And see, here's the dirty trick that those of us that know about this understand, and that many of you, not talking down to you, need to understand. See, you can only make good, sound decisions if you're presented with all the information needed to make that decision. But if you're presented with half information, half truths, and everything, you're going to come to a decision, but you're not going to know all the information, which I hate to use this term, is going to cripple your decision making, even though you think you're making a sound decision. I would tell you there have been people on the main stage of life that you have called enemies, that you had problems with because of how they were portrayed on TV. That if you took a deep dive, you would find out, and you would lament probably, because you would find out you were hating somebody, you had issues with somebody that was actually trying to help society. Some of you have done that, and you don't even know you did it. I did it at one point in my life. At one point in my life, I thought, I have so many, this could be a part two. I have some things I could say. Before I woke up, there were things that I supported. I look back on like, how could I have done that? Or how could I have had that mindset, at least? Let me say it like that. How could I have had that mindset? It's because you didn't know all the information you needed to know. So, back when I was first really looking into a lot of these things, I remember, and this has become a kind of something relevant because the World Court has been mentioned in the news as of late. They want to bring Vladimir Putin before the World Court, which is not a good precedent. I'm gonna say that again. That's not a good precedent. A world authority coming into a sovereign nation and saying we want to arrest this leader and bring him before a world court. Y'all better think about what they're trying to say to you without saying it. They're saying this will make a one worlder's grin from cheek to cheek, because this would be a way of them saying, you know, we have power over the nation states. The international power has power over the nation states. That is a world government precedent, a one world government precedent. Do not overlook that. Anyway, when the International Criminal Court, and it's not the first world court that they had, but the International Criminal Court was put in place, I remember there was a buildup. There was an alternative. There was alternative media that I was listening to, right, and they were talking about it. They were, because it was big. It's a big. It was a big deal because this court had the right to try everyone, had the sovereign, not the sovereign right, but had the ability and the power to try anyone on the face of the earth when it comes to crimes against humanity, war crimes, and etc. I remember hearing about this, and but I wouldn't hear much about it in the mainstream media. But when it passed, I was looking. I did an experiment. I looked to see if mainstream media was going to be talking about this landmark thing of this court being passed. I went through the mainstream media, and first of all, if it wasn't for the alternative news I was listening to, I wouldn't have known about an international criminal court. But when I looked through mainstream media, It was like it was a blackout. And I'm telling you what I experienced in real time. It was like it was a blackout. It was not hardly talked about. I was connected to another alternative source. I was connected to them in the sense that I was getting their newsletter. I was getting the other ones in a magazine, but I was getting this one's like it was like a quarterly journal in a sense. Um, this person had connections with another writer who actually would go to global meetings and bring back intelligence and stuff like that. This person was putting up and he was providing a calendar each year for the major global meetings that would take place. Again, I knew this looking at the information, the solid information that was provided there. And on this one, I'll tell you, this one was Gary Kaz, Hope for the World update. And the person that he had providing the intelligence, I figured some things out, but I'm not going to go into all that. I'll say this: the guy's alias was Jamie Brendan, uh, and um, I counted the events on the first year I got that. It was very interesting to me. It was 75 events, 75 global meetings that were happening that year. And again, to my knowledge, very few of those meetings, when they happened, were covered in mainstream media. But yet he was breaking down everything that was happening in those major meetings. Now, 75 meetings, and I don't even think that was all the meetings. Those were the major meetings. Look, these people ain't playing. They're not playing. They are not playing. People wonder why I talk the way I do and everything like that. When you actually have taken a deep dive and know what's going on, you know that this is not something that's a joke. Now, there are different ways people look at it, depending upon their outlook of eschatology. Now, I am not one of those people that believes the prophecies of all the prophecies of the Bible have happened. I'm not one of those 70 A.D. type. No, no. I think there's too much evidence that says something else. And if that was really the case, then why come no one from that time period? No one. Now, they may have seen 70 A.D. as prophetic. We know that. And it was prophetic. But none of them, to my knowledge, none of the early apostolic and even ante-Nicene fathers that I know of looked at the prophecies of the Bible and said everything is. They didn't interpret the book of Revelation like that. They did not interpret the book of Revelation like that. And so this is how here's my understanding and my take on things. Just to go down this rabbit hole a little bit. You know, what's written in the book of Revelation still has to come to pass. And it's going to come to pass because God says it's going to happen. Now, whether that is our time period or not, because I have left room for the fact that we may think it's our time period, but it may not be. It may not be. There are people that, when Hitler rose to power, that thought Hitler was the Antichrist, but Hitler was not the Antichrist. We have to be careful with, in some respects, with an absolute stance and say, oh, this is absolutely it. And this is why I have no problem. One of the reasons why I have no problem when we see things that just are inherently bad for humanity. I don't adopt the position that says we're supposed to stand idly by because it has to happen anyway. And what must come to pass, must come to pass. What if everybody was thinking that way about Hitler? We'd still be in his 1,000-year right now. And people would wake up and say, I thought this was the Antichrist. This is the Antichrist. This was supposed to be over years ago. because he wasn't the Antichrist. He was not the Antichrist. And there's nothing in the prophecies of the Bible that state that everything with the Antichrist that happens must happen. Must, I mean, that the things that happen with the Antichrist must only happen. Some of the things. Let me rearrange what I'm saying. There's nothing that says that there cannot be any corrupt leaders. That's a better way to say it. There can't be any corrupt leaders, any dictators before the Antichrist. There were. Stalin was before the Antichrist. Lenin was before the Antichrist. This is what I meant to say, y'all. Hitler was before the Antichrist. There were people that were dictatorial before the Antichrist. So we can't look at this technocratic system that's being built. This, I believe, I would call it corporate technocratic system that's being built, and just say this is absolutely it. This is it. This got to be the end. And let me tell you, I think it's possible that it is. You know, very possible, very possible. I believe the Lord is soon to come, and if you don't think that's what I'm saying, then go examine some of my old go on Facebook and examine some of my old Facebook posts. I absolutely believe we're in the end time. I'm saying that we have to be careful with this ideology that makes us pacifists. And there's even a new teaching out here that's promoting that, the whole false light scenario and all that. The person that's promoting that is actually acting like people should just be pacifists and just get out of everything and don't do anything. I don't adopt that. I don't believe that. I think that one of the ways in which we should be salt and light, and here we go, I done said a word now, so I'm probably a controlled opposition. But anyway, and that kind of stuff. But anyway, salt and light's in the Bible, y'all. I think that we're not wrong if we're in a position to resist people being put in bad positions. I don't think we're wrong if we're in a position to resist that, to lawfully resist it. I don't think we're wrong to lawfully resist it. I don't think we're wrong to do that. You know, I think we're right to do that. God, how governments do and how unjust laws are passed, that matters to God. Biblically, that matters to God. Biblically. So, we just have to be careful. So I went on a rabbit trail, and let me come back around. How do I know these things? Because there's information out there, and I've presented some of them. There's information out there that will let you know what's going on, and your best bet is not to make your best course of action is not to let mainstream media be your main source of information. Your main source of information needs to be solid, good alternative sources. I'm not the guy. People can misunderstand me in saying that. I'm not the guy to say never listen to mainstream, but I'm saying that shouldn't be your main recourse. It really shouldn't be, because again, you're not going to get the entire story that way. Now, we've gotten to the point now where they're just incredible alternative sources. The Corbett Report, The Hill. I can't say I trust everything The Hill does, but they're worth looking at. There's one I'm trying to think of now that Whitney Webb used to, but Whitney Webb herself, the last American vagabond. Whitney Webb's website is unlimitedhangout.com. Mint Press. Mint News Press, rather. Um, now not all these people ideologically and from a political standpoint come from the same perspective, but you're going to get more truthful news from the people I'm talking about. That's all I'm saying. Gray Zone, Technocracy News and Trends. There's just a lot of good places you can go. Activist Post. I like truthunmuted.com. They're pretty cool. Um, you know, Leo Hoham, I believe his name is. He's good. They're just some good sources out here where you're going to get, and most of what I'm talking about is stuff that they're going to give you information on the global scale, on the global level, and you're going to get a better understanding of what's going on in terms of another thing. If you really want to know what's going on out here, take some time to turn TV off and pick up some books. You know what I'm saying? And don't just pick up books like mainstream books. You know, find some books. I'm gonna say it to you like this: if you go in the bookstore to get all your books, you're gonna get all. Most of the time in bookstores, you're gonna get all the acceptable stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you're actively looking for books yourself, you're gonna be put in a better position. You know what I'm saying? One good way to do that is if you read a good book. I'm trying to think of a real good book. Like say if you read G. Edward Griffin's Creature from Jekyll Island. One of the best things you can do with a book like that is go to his bibliography. What people can't say about G. Edward Griffin, one thing they cannot say is that he doesn't source what he's saying. He heavily sources what he's saying, heavily. Um, Even when I mentioned, I think I may have mentioned Secrets of the Federal Reserve. You know, Eustace Mullins. Now, Eustace Mullins is more controversial than G. Edward Griffin, and there are things that were said about him. At this point, I can't totally. Well, I won't even go there because there are some things about him that I believe that they say that are legit. But at the end of the day, you know, that alone doesn't discredit someone's research, and that's something people don't. This is why it's good. This is why people need to really get back to understanding things like logic. That's a logical fallacy, just to go after the person and say, well, because this person is not a pleasant person, their research is garbage. No, it does not logically follow that because they're the type of person that they were that you can't get anything from them. Um, and so, I would say there are things that he likely to engage in, from what I understand, that I don't agree with. But his information in the Secrets of the Federal Reserve is worth you getting the book. And that's not the only book I would say get from him. The World Order is a definite book I would say to get from him. And both of those books can be read free online. Like by his people, his estate, I think has it up where you can just go to the site and read it. You know, a lot of his information is good. There are some things, key areas where I disagreed with him, but those books, you're not going to find those things really in those books like that. Um, Long story. I may have to make a whole video on him or something. I don't know. Professor Anthony Sutton, someone who I would recommend, and I would say I probably agree with a little bit more in terms. Well, I there was likely a better person. I'll say it like that. I won't say I agree with more of his research per se. But definitely with someone who like him, who was a professor. You know what I'm saying? Again, read his information, look at his footnotes, look at his different things like that. That's a good way to find out. That's a good way to find out what the person is, where the person's getting their information and everything like that. You know, books with no footnotes, no references or nothing. Now, some books, there's a book I have in mind right now. Well, I can't say that because that book has some footnotes in it. But there's a certain style that this person wrote in. But at least in the back of his book, he has books that you can read. He said, look, if you want to understand what I wrote in here, here are the books. I have to admit, you do a better service to people that are wanting to go through your research if you footnote and have a bibliography or something like that, or have a, something like that. But I'm gonna say this: a book that has none of those that I just mentioned, including what the author I was alluding to just now. A book that has none of those, you should be highly questionable of them. You should highly question them. Now, I want to say this. I mentioned Tragedy and Hope earlier, I think. Tragedy and Hope, you're not going to find footnotes or bibliography because there was, right after the original Tragedy and Hope was put out, if you know the story, they basically pulled the book. They pulled it. And then tried to put it back out with eliminating the first half of the book, which is probably the juiciest half, and renamed the book and put it back out. Carroll Quigley believes his book was, he said in an interview, he believed that they suppressed his book, his work. Now, the reason why you can still use Tragedy and Hope is because because that he wrote another book that came out after he died. And it was really the first book he wrote, but he was afraid to release it, apparently, while he was living, called The Anglo-American Establishment. And the sources for his information are essentially in that book. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you could still read a huge 1,000 tome like Tragedy and Hope, and you can still be confident in the fact that, okay, this guy isn't just making stuff up. You know what I'm saying? But if you know the story of the man and everything like that, you know that. So it depends, but most of the time, if there's a book and a person can't present where they got the information, and they're making all sorts of wild claims and everything like that, and then just because something is heavily footnoted, that doesn't mean it's accurate. Because if you go behind them and check their sources, you have to check and see if they use those sources right and correctly. But those are just things I'm saying. And also I wanted to say the book I was referring to earlier was actually The Underground History of American Education. Now, again, he does list books to read, and he does footnote it. So please understand, I'm not, but there are certain things about his book that are just not traditional in that sense. And if you get the book, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's still worth reading. It's worth reading. And if you ever listen to John Taylor Gatto, he's a very brilliant person. And you can look in other places and everything and see what he was saying is correct. Overall, what he's saying is correct. You know what I'm saying? So again, don't misunderstand what I said. Please get that book. But I'm just making a point that most of the time when you have a book, again, here's his footnoted, but if you have a book that doesn't show in any way where they're getting their information, you need to scratch your head. You may need to put the book down. You know what I'm saying? If you see, I'm talking about just in any book that's like that. You know what I'm saying? Again, where they're not presenting any way they documented it or came to their conclusions or anything like that. So my point in making this video is information is out there, solid information. went on for a little while now, but solid information. But you have to be someone committed to getting information yourself. I came across something the other day, and I'm going to leave you with this. And they said this, and at 42 years old, that's where I'm at now. I've come to understand this to be true. You know, education is a lifestyle. When they said that, it was so simple, but yet profound. Education is a lifestyle, and if you're going to be an informed person in this world, you have to actively, willingly be take it upon yourself to be informed. You have to come away from the mentality of waiting for everybody to spoon feed you. You have to determine yourself, I'm going to know things. I'm going to know things about history. I'm going to know things. And you have to see the disadvantage that we've had is many of us don't know where things work in the overall scheme of things in understanding the world, understanding how everything works. History plays such an important part. A lot of stuff we see in history that we see in the present is a repetition, really, of things that have already happened in some ways. I'm getting it really. That's a biblical concept, even. That the thing that has been is a thing which shall be. And the thing that has been is the thing that already has been done, and there's nothing new under the sun. What makes some of this today seem new is that we got more toys to play with, and we have more efficient ways to do what we're doing. But there's nothing really new under the sun in that sense. So this is why it's important to know history. If you know the mistakes and all these things of history, people will not repeat those mistakes. We've been told those things in numerous ways, but that's why we need to know history. We need to understand things like logic and everything because we need to know how to think in a sound way. When you understand that, you understand that that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to be a thinker. It's a good thing to utilize the mind that God gave you. So, anyway, hopefully I did justice to this. I've been asked the question, and there you have it. I've been asked the question numerous times, and there you have it. All the information that's out there is not going to be presented to you on the nightly news. In some cases, they're not going to present it to you because it conflicts. There's a conflict of interest somewhere sometimes and different things like that. So you're not going to know everything you need to know just watching the nightly news. You're not going to know everything you need to know because you went from kindergarten to the 12th grade. I'm sorry to tell you that. You're not everything. They did not tell you and some of the things they told you were wrong. It's not because your immediate teacher was trying to deceive you necessarily. It's because of the nature of the system that you're in. That's another video, but you weren't told everything. Even if you went to college, you weren't told everything. These things exist to serve a purpose. They do, and I'm not someone that'll tell you don't go to school. I'm not in that sense. I'm not someone that'll tell you don't go to college. But I'm here to tell you, you better understand those things and understand what they actually are. That's all I'm saying. Now, with the school thing, I would admonish, especially people now, I would admonish everybody that can to homeschool their children. And it ain't enough to just homeschool them. You need to know some things I admonish you real quickly. Study the difference between modern education and classical education. Please do that. And when you study classical education, get the perspectives of how to present classical education from a Christian perspective and a Christian worldview. If you can do that, about 98% positive that you will produce thinking, sound thinking, solid children that will grow up and be productive in society. And they won't be fooled by every little thing that comes around the corner. So that's another thing. How many of us know that there is classical education and then there's how many of us have ever heard of something called the Trivium? You know, these you know, look into it. Look into it. Anyway, I pray everyone has a blessed day. I could go on and on. I have a lot of things on my heart in this area. Hopefully, people will take time and listen to a 55 plus minute, I guess, lecture or whatever you want to call it. I was just speaking from my heart, though. Everyone have a blessed day. Grace and peace.